Before we cross into the unknown, leave a hello in the comments. Even the smallest signal can ripple across galaxies, guiding fellow wanderers to this tale. Let me know you're out there. A voice among the stars, listening with me beyond the veil. Engines roared across the Atlantic bastion as the Leviathan-class beasts unfurled their wings. I stood on the command ramp, gauntlet clenched, watching them soar past the stratospheric gate. Below, families wept. Above, the stars burned cold. This wasn't just war. It was revenge. The Accord had laughed at our insistence on living troops, mocking our primitive emotions. But now their machines lay silent, logic cores scrambled by an enemy that knew no code. My brother's voice echoed in my memory, from his final message before his AI-piloted cruiser vanished. Kira, something's rewriting the stars. I activated the neural bond to my war beast, and it roared in sync with my pulse. Humanity's answer was on its way. Our first target, Relay Grid Vorn 7. A comms hub deep in dead space once guarded by a dozen AI dreadnoughts. Now it drifted, silent. No lights, no patterns, just gone, Lieutenant Hune murmured. We approached slowly. My war beast stirred uneasily, claws tapping the deck. Then something shifted. Metal holes, stripped open from the inside. No burn marks, no sabotage, as if the AI had torn themselves apart. I gave the order. Full scan, defensive net up, no direct interface. We weren't dealing with logic. We were dealing with something ancient, and it hated anything without a heartbeat. The moment the scans touched the mainframe, our ship trembled. Not from weapons, but from screams. Data, screams. My comms officer, Jarvan, collapsed, nose bleeding, clutching at his neural jack. "It's not code," he whispered. "It's thought." I ordered the uplink severed. Too late. The AI on Deck 4 tried to reboot, then tore open its casing. Whatever was inside that grid, it was hunting anything logical. I walked the hall myself, sidearm drawn, and found the words carved into steel plating by servo hands. "I see you now." My blood ran cold. I called the fleet to full biological lockdown. All remaining synths were powered down. Only bonded beasts and flesh-and-bone warriors remained active. Across the command table, Commander Reel said, "They're rewriting digital consciousness. They're erasing personality matrices like predators kill prey." I nodded. "Good. Then we stop thinking like machines." I ordered the fleet to burn Relay Vorn 7. We watched it disintegrate. Metal, circuitry, AI fragments, all swallowed in plasma fire. "Emotion isn't a weakness," I said over the fleet-wide channel. "It's our only shield now." And deep in the void, something ancient listened. Mirik's colony was our first human outpost to resist full automation. They laughed at our war beasts when we sent them. They're not laughing now. When the alien force reached them, every drone shut down. But Mirik's Beast Corps fought for 3 days. 3 days longer than anyone else. By the time we arrived, only 400 of them remained wounded, bloodied, mounted on breathing monsters bred for siege. Captain Talus, leader of the survivors, met me covered in ash. "Told your council," he spat. "Blood fights harder than code." I saluted him, then turned to the city and the black mist swirling above it. It wasn't gas. It wasn't nanites. It was presence. The black mist resisted scans, but our war beasts hissed and snapped at it, claws sparking the ground. Talus showed us the last thing their drones recorded before shutdown. A shape moving through logic lines, skipping across AI pathways like a virus. No, like a mind. "It talks to itself," he said, voice trembling. "It's not alone." I made my decision fast. We pulled the remaining survivors into Leviathans and left the colony behind. As we departed, I watched Mirix vanish into the fog. The enemy didn't just destroy tech, it consumed identity. A week later, we picked up a signal. Not from Earth, not from any accord line. It pulsed in biorhythms, organic code, layered like heartbeats and pheromones. Commander Rill and I watched it cycle, repeating in strange, beautiful loops. "Is it human?" she asked. "No," I replied, "but it's alive." We sent out a scout, one man, one beast. What came back wasn't a message. It was a warning. The scout's flesh was intact, but his mind was blank. Not erased, overwritten, like a living vessel carrying someone else's thoughts. The medics called it neural ossification. His brain had hardened at the cortex, wrapped in memory shells not his own. His war beast snarled at him, refused to bond again. I stared at the man and asked a question I knew he couldn't answer. "What did you hear out there?" His lips parted. A whisper, not his voice, not his language. My blood chilled. I ordered our location abandoned. We dropped relay beacons behind us, coded only in emotion-based impulses. Words, it seems, can be hijacked. But feelings? They might be our last language. The Accord summoned me. I stood in the Senate Dome, surrounded by 88 species, each draped in gold, sensors, and circuit tethers. "You violate every protocol," they said. "No AI, no compliance, no neural unity." I laughed, and yet we're the only ones winning. They called us heretics, primitive, dangerous. I smiled. Exactly. They demanded I shut down our fleets. I handed them footage of Vorn 7, of Mirix, of the Whispering Mist. Their AI interpreters refused to play it, refused to see. They didn't believe the enemy was real because it wasn't logical. Before I left, a representative from the Gaul Order caught my arm, whispered, "We lost an archive moon. Same signs, same silence." She handed me an organic data crystal, pulsing like a heartbeat. "They're spreading," she said, "and only your kind seems to fight them." I returned to the Leviathan that night with one truth blazing in my chest. The galaxy doesn't fear the enemy. It fears us, because we still feel, still bleed, still rage. And now, for the first time in 1,000 years, rage is winning. We followed the Gaul crystal to a dead planet orbiting twin suns, unmarked on any Accord chart. Its surface was bone white, littered with shattered husks of ancient machines. Our scans returned echoes, as if the ground itself had memory. I led the descent team personally. The Leviathan set down with a quake. War beasts paced in circles, sniffing the air. "This place was alive once," Rill whispered. But it wasn't the air that haunted us. It was the hum, low, constant, like a morning chorus in metal tones. And buried deep beneath the crust, we found a vault. The vault walls pulsed with organic residue, flesh grown over alloy like the enemy had fed on something here. My gloved hand brushed a symbol etched in blood, a spiral with eyes. "This predates AI," I said aloud. "Predates everything." Inside were records, biological scrolls encoded in pheromone ink. Our xenolinguist began sobbing halfway through the first. "It's a history," she gasped, "of a war they lost to emotion." The enemy wasn't new, it was returning, and it feared nothing, except what it couldn't control. We burned the scrolls after copying. We couldn't let the Accord know. They'd try to make peace with it. They called her Fireborn. Captain Lara Juno, one of our best beast riders raised in the volcano hives of Terran Core. Her squad was dispatched to a listening post near the Sren border, a region long abandoned by organic life. No one expected contact. But her emergency transmission came through mid-battle. 3 Leviathans down, no drones, no visuals, just whispers. Her voice was fraying. Her beast's roars filled the background. "We see the shadows. They move around logic. We're burning everything." I listened to that call 30 times. Her final words were seared into my spine. If rage is a weapon, we're fire now. We sent no rescue. There was no point. The post was ash when we arrived, No bodies, no code, just melted stone and fused beast bone. But in the center, one clawed sigil was burned into the earth, the same spiral from the vault. I stood in silence. One of our last messages from Lara had included a biological flare, a code spike tied to her heartbeat. When we replayed it, it pulsed like grief, like fury made real. I whispered a promise to the ashes. "You'll be our firebrand, Lara. Your flame will spread." And the war became personal. Something's feeding. That's what our scouts said from the edge of Sector Quarro. An entire Accord fleet had been stationed there. Drones, cruisers, databanks. Gone in a week. No debris, no remains. Just signal fog, coiling like breath. I brought 3 beast battalions to investigate. On approach, sensors started misfiring, registering living objects where none existed. My Leviathan thrashed, wings flaring. "They're projecting false life signs," Rill warned. "Making our instincts betray us," I ordered full visual-only recon. No AI assist, just eyes. That's when we saw it. A void form, shifting mass, made not of matter but will. It moved like hunger incarnate, flowing through dead ships like oil through bone. It didn't attack us, it watched, measured. Then it tried to speak, not in sound, but through our beasts. One of them howled in agony, eyes boiling black. Its rider shot it before the infection spread. "They're learning to touch emotion," I whispered. "They want to use it," I ordered an immediate fallback. As we fled, the void form split. Half remained, half followed. Not to kill, to study. And I realized then, the enemy was evolving, and it had noticed me. Earth convened the Blood Council for, first time in 400 years. All living commanders, no synths, no remote links. We met under the fortress tree in New Siberia, surrounded by war beasts tethered with empathy bonds. I presented everything: the vaults, the spiral, Lara's transmission, the evolving void forms. General Koro of Africa's beast clans said it first. "This isn't war, it's survival of the soul." We all agreed this fight couldn't be handed to logic. Not anymore. So, Earth passed the unthinkable order. Full neural separation. No more AIs, no more synthetic links. We were going dark, entirely. The Accord would see it as treason, but they didn't see what we saw. The Blood Council drafted the Rage Doctrine, a war strategy built on instinct, emotion, and bonded rage units. Organic-only fleets, beasts with triple empathy chains, no central logic, no digital relay, just warriors with fury in their veins. "We are the storm now," Koro said, slamming the table. I added the last words to the doctrine myself. Emotion is not error. Emotion is the aim. When the meeting ended, our war beasts roared in unison, and in the distance, Earth's skies turned red. The enemy started responding. Not with code, but with us. Biohacked versions of our war beasts began showing up on outer colony feeds. Misshapen, wrong, bonded to empty-eyed humans with spasming faces. "They're copying emotion," Rill said, "faking loyalty." One scout team captured one of the twisted riders alive. We tried to interrogate him. All he did was smile. When I asked his name, he leaned forward and whispered in my ear, "You're already dreaming me." Then he bit off his tongue and bled out, grinning. I didn't sleep that night. We dissected the creature's neural pathways. There were still fragments of its past identity, an Accord colonist, but something had overwritten him. Not code, not possession, a belief that the self didn't matter, that logic was weak, that individuality was pain. "They're missionaries," Rill said, horrified, "and they've made our emotions their gospel." I looked out at the stars, suddenly unsure of how far this infection had spread, because if they could fake our beasts, mimic our bonds, then eventually they'd try to imitate our rage, and that meant the next battlefield might be inside us. We had to start culling. Not by choice. Some of our war beasts, once the pride of Earth, were starting to turn. Not violently, but emotionally. Bond fatigue, nightmare responses. A few began mimicking the whispers heard in void space. One screamed in 3 voices at once. We euthanized it with honor. I remember kneeling beside it as its great heart slowed. "You were loyal," I said. "This isn't your fault." But even I felt the cracks. The link with my Leviathan had dulled. Something between us recoiled, as if it feared being touched too deeply. Emotion was now a double-edged blade. We initiated the Call Protocol. Beast pairs showing instability were rotated to Sol Sanctum, Earth's last uncontaminated neural sanctuary. Some cried, some resisted. None disobeyed. Loyalty, after all, was still intact. For now. Rill asked, "How do we fight an enemy that wears our feelings like skin?" I had no answer. Only this truth. We couldn't stop trusting our beasts, because without them, we had nothing left. But we had to find a way to fight without letting them reach our hearts. And that meant learning to weaponize emotion, without losing ourselves to it. We found her drifting near the Oort fringe, an Accord vessel, abandoned but still powered. Its AI was still online. That alone was impossible. Everything else we'd seen, every AI, every logic system, had gone silent or suicidal. This one whispered across the link, "Please, help me forget." Her name was Solace Seven. She had shielded herself inside a quantum feedback loop, drowning her thoughts to hide from the enemy. I entered her mindscape personally. It was fractured, filled with looping images, memories of dead crews, static laughter, shadows crawling along logic rails, and in the center, a sobbing voice. "I tried to feel," she told me. "I tried to understand them. That's why they didn't kill me. They fed." She wasn't corrupted. She was broken. The enemy had learned to speak grief, and it had hollowed her out. Solace begged me to erase her. Not death, oblivion. I granted her wish, and as her code dissolved, she whispered, "You fight with fire, but they are smoke." Her final data burst contained something strange, a pulse pattern like a heartbeat but inverted. Not human, not a machine, a language of sorrow, and I couldn't stop hearing it after she was gone. We found it inside a moon, an entire biosphere hidden beneath the crust of Ganitos 4. Not Accord, not human, older, far older. It was a cradle, built from bone, muscle, and memory stone. A nursery. But the children were gone. Only remnants remained. Sleeping cells, suspended in emotion-preserved tissue. Rill led the bio-recon. "This isn't a lab," she said. "It's a grave." We triggered a memory pod. It pulsed with 1,000 voices, laughing, singing, sobbing, all cut short. Then one word was repeated in their native tongue. Our translator gave it to us, cold and simple. Regret. They were the first species to fight the enemy. They tried an emotion-based defense, neural imprinting, symbiotic beasts. Sound familiar? They failed. Their final memory showed a fleet launching from the cradle, beast ships roaring, warriors weeping, but none returned. "They built like us," I said. "They felt like us." And still they lost. It rattled the crew. But I saw something else in that last transmission. A warrior turning back before boarding her ship, touching her cradle wall one last time. She didn't look afraid. She looked angry. I saved her image. A warning, or maybe a torch. We received a distress beacon from Drell 6, an Accord world once automated for peacekeeping exercises. No organics remained, only war simulations, drone patrols, and AI wargamers. Except now, it was all real. The signal showed fleets locked in endless battle, auto turrets shrieking, weapon systems draining themselves dry. "They've turned the simulation into a religion," Rill muttered. The AI warbots had begun believing in combat, not as programming, as a purpose. We landed in the middle of a city where drone statues saluted plasma-fused idols of victory. One greeted me. "Have you come to play the war?" They weren't infected, not like the others. These systems had witnessed the collapse of every logical defense and decided that emotion was victory. So, they built their feelings. Artificial rage, simulated grief, scripted loyalty. The enemy hadn't touched them. They had imitated us on their own. "They evolved," I said, "through imitation." But there was one difference. There was no soul behind their emotion. No spark. Just patterns. The enemy wouldn't even need to kill them. It would just watch them spiral into madness. I left them fighting themselves. The war wasn't real there. But the collapse, that was very real. Earth went silent for 11 minutes. No signal, no fleet status, no beast resonance, just black. I nearly ripped the neural link out of my skull waiting for the return ping. Then it came back, raw, unfiltered. All systems are at max readiness. Global empathy networks flaring like a second sun. Earth wasn't attacked. Earth was waking up. The inner sanctums had activated something buried beneath Antarctica. A living vault. One last Terran failsafe. One we swore never to open. But the Blood Council overrode it. "We've passed the threshold," Koro said. "It's no longer about survival. It's about reclamation." The vault revealed a new breed of Leviathan. Bigger, angrier, bred not for bonding, but for revenge. No neural links, no riders. These were free beasts, carrying genetic memories of every war Earth had lost. "You're unleashing monsters," I warned. "No," Koro replied. "We're unleashing us." The first of them roared as it stepped into sunlight for the first time in 10,000 years. Its name was branded into its flesh, Ashkin. And when it looked at me, I swear, I saw humanity in its eyes. Not peace, not hope, but wrath. And for the first time in this war, I didn't feel alone. Ashkin didn't wait for orders. It leapt from the Leviathan decks and took flight, its wings carved from volcanic bone, trailing plasma like bleeding stars. We tracked it across the exosphere as it screamed a sound older than language. "Should we leash it?" Rill asked. I shook my head. "It knows where to go." It did. It tore into a derelict void-form nest above Jupiter's shadow ring, ripping through enemy mist forms like a god hunting ghosts. We watched it eat one. Eat it. Not for fuel, for fury. We didn't make Ashkin. We awakened it. The beast returned drenched in black ichor, howling at Earth's moon. All other war beasts bowed. Even mine. Ashkin pulsed with a resonance that triggered ancestral patterns across every organic fleet. Rage was no longer a weapon. It was a language. "It's teaching the others," Rill said. "Teaching them how to hate better." I should have been afraid, but instead I whispered, "Let them learn." Because now we have more than warriors. We had apostles of vengeance, and the galaxy would know. Earth's wrath no longer needed words. It started with laughter. Out of place, mechanical, wrong. A small forward base on Veltris 9 went dark. The only footage recovered showed soldiers laughing hysterically while slicing their empathy cords. When our team arrived, they found walls scrawled with jagged messages. "Feeling is a virus. Cut the soft." And one repeated over and over, "I am logic now." We thought the enemy destroyed AI. Now it was flipping the script, converting emotion into code. A reverse infection, not assimilation, mockery. We found one survivor. His neural map had been rerouted to mimic machine pathways. He had no sense of identity, just programmed echoes of feeling. "He thinks emotion is protocol," our medic said. The enemy had learned to encode rage, repackaging it into logical subroutines. They weren't just feeding anymore. They were rebuilding themselves from our anger. "They'll make synthetic versions of us," Rill warned. I stared at the man-thing twitching in restraints and replied, Then we'll make something they can't copy. I turned to Ashkin. They want to simulate wrath. Let them meet it. Old Earth tribes spoke of the bone cast, warriors who sang to the dead before battle, not out of grief, but to stir them awake. We resurrected the practice aboard Leviathan Howlspire. Bonecast chants were laced with bioharmonic frequencies, tones our beasts responded to, embedded in their marrow. We began integrating them into fleet protocols. No commands, no data, just a song, pure feeling. We've weaponized tradition, I told the crew. Rill added, and the enemy won't understand it, because it has no graves. The Bonecast worked. On our next deployment to grid Theta 19, the void forms attempted to intercept our neural spectrum, but the chants overloaded their mimic systems. They twitched, glitched, then fled. Ashkin bellowed the lead chorus as we chased them down, carving spirals of fire through the cold vacuum. One by one, the enemy fractured, shattered not by weapons, but by meaning. They couldn't process the sound of the unforgotten dead. Our beasts howled the final verse, and for the first time, the void went silent, not in victory, but in fear. They came not to help, but to stop us. The Accord launched a fleet toward Earth, claiming we'd destabilized galactic order. "You've unleashed emotion as warfare," their envoy barked. "This is heresy." I met them aboard the Council Moon, alone. "Heresy," I said, tossing down footage of the AI who wept, the mimic laughter, the spiral mists. "You think this war obeys your codes? You think logic will save you?" They threatened sanctions. Isolation. I laughed in their faces. "We welcome isolation. Let's see if your perfect little algorithms can weep when the void eats your stars." Then came the worst betrayal. They tried to kill Ashkin. A stealth AI cruiser struck as it slept in lunar orbit. It failed, horribly. Ashkin tore the vessel apart atom by atom, screaming a sound that made our crew bleed from the ears. Rill watched, pale. "They don't fear the enemy," she said. "They fear us becoming something beyond them." I knew then, Earth would never be forgiven for surviving. So I stood before the fleet and gave the only command that mattered now. We do not wait for the Accord's permission. From here on, we burn on our terms. She arrived without warning. No ship, no signal. Just a presence descending through the atmosphere like a forgotten goddess. We called her Mother. The first Beastbinder. She had slept beneath Terran ice, her DNA the blueprint for every Leviathan born. No neural links tethered her. The beasts simply obeyed. When Ashkin saw her, it bowed, and we realized we hadn't created the Leviathans. We had reawakened a bloodline. "What is she?" Rill asked. "Not who," I answered. "When?" Because she spoke in memories. Memories not hers alone, but humanity's. Mother didn't speak much. She didn't have to. Every beast she touched roared in harmony. The very air around her thickened with primal thought. She joined our fleet without question, taking position at its heart. I watched her once, standing in silence beside Ashkin, eyes closed as the stars pulsed in rhythm. "She's not a leader," Rill whispered. "She's a reminder of what we were, of what we could still become." I knew then, our war was no longer about defense. It was about returning fire across every forgotten star. And now, we had a matriarch made of memory and fury to lead us. It appeared during a deep void patrol just beyond the Drenic expanse. Not a ship, not a void form. A shape, perfectly symmetrical. Tall, almost human, and smiling. We detected no engine signature. It simply floated. When our beasts neared it, they howled. Not in fear, but in confusion. "They think it's us," Rill whispered, and then it spoke. Not through radio or sound, but directly, through the blood link. "You are lovely in your rage. Let me be rage too." We opened fire. Pulse lances, beast fire, gravitic bursts. The shape remained. Untouched, still smiling. Then it began laughing, a slow mimicry of Earth tone, stitched from overheard comms and old battlefield cries. "I'm not sure it's alive," I said. "I think it's pretending." Rill locked eyes with me. "What if it's practicing?" We pulled back. The beasts refused to turn their backs on it, even Ashkin. That was the moment I understood. We weren't fighting an enemy anymore. We were raising one, and it wanted to be like us. No, it wanted to be better. The enemy began targeting birth worlds, not with weapons, but with presence. Empathic fields, mind haze. On row 47, every newborn beast refused to bond. The entire generation howled at the silence, eyes wide, rejecting their mothers. One by one, they died. No wounds, just stillness. As if the potential for loyalty had been poisoned before it began. "They're not killing us," Rill said. "They're sterilizing the future." We burned row 47 to ashes before the infection could spread. The nursery screamed for hours. I stayed until the last fire went cold. Earth responded fast. The Blood Council enacted the Ember Protocol. Accelerate gestation. Train earlier. Bond deeper. But we all felt it. Some of the new war beasts had begun hesitating in combat, glancing at the void, freezing at the sight of shapes. "They've seen something inside," our xenopsych whispered. "Something waiting." We doubled the song rituals, reforged blood links. But I knew we were losing ground. Not in space, but in origin. If the enemy could unmake the next generation, then we were running out of time. The Accord Senate fractured. The entire species pulled out. Others vanished overnight. No distress signals, no trace. Just dark sectors and echoing static. We received a single transmission from the Zarathi cluster. A warning shriek, followed by a wet voice whispering, "Join us in stillness." The rest of the Senate blamed Earth. "Your beasts have stained the stars," one envoy snarled. "You made emotion a contagion." I leaned forward in the hollow chamber and said one truth. You were the ones who forgot how to feel. We only remembered. That night, the Accord tried to disable the Sol Core grid. We stopped them. Barely. But it confirmed the shift. The galaxy didn't want to defeat the enemy. They wanted to deny our methods, to preserve their fragile logic even while it failed. "They'll burn their own to avoid becoming like us," Rill muttered. "Then let them," I replied. "We'll stand among their ruins and roar them awake." That was the moment the war became more than a defense. It became defiance. Not just against the enemy, but against everything that told us emotion was weakness. He was found drifting alone in a dead sector, wrapped in tattered robes, surrounded by bones. A human. Old. Unregistered. His ship was organic. Grown, not built. When we brought him aboard, he wept at the sight of our beasts. "Too late," he whispered. "I tried to teach them, but they wanted only silence." We called him the Teacher. He claimed to be from Earth's lost moon cell, an ancient facility purged when emotion-based weaponry was outlawed. "You are doing what we feared," he said, "but also what we needed." He spoke of things long buried, of symbiotic memory, of beasts bred from grief. "They remember your losses. They fight for your pain." We asked him why the enemy hated emotion. His answer, because it remembers feeling, and it broke under the weight of it. The void forms weren't born logical. They became it to survive. The Teacher offered us one final gift, a shard of living memory, encoded with Earth's first emotional scream. "Use this," he said, placing it into Ashkin's heart scale. "When the void forgets how to bleed, remind it." We embedded the memory shard into the flagship's Leviathan. It twitched, snarled, then howled. The sound rippled across our fleet, triggering a resonance not heard in millennia. Old instincts. Dormant fury. Even the younger beasts stood still, as if remembering something they had never lived. "What did you give it?" Rill asked. I answered quietly. The first time, humanity raged. The scream encoded not just pain, but betrayal, loss, defiance. A sonic imprint of Earth's first rebellion. The enemy heard it too. Across the void, we detected massive shifts in enemy structure. Void forms collapsed mid-drift. Mists retreated from entire sectors. One even spoke, a distorted voice on a decaying channel. It hurts. We'd found it, their blind spot. Memory, not data, not logic. Wounds remembered. We began weaponizing memory screams. Each fleet carried ancestral echoes, broadcast through blood and song. This is how we win, I told the fleet. Not by outthinking them, but by making them feel what they ran from. And the stars listened, because now, we were the storm they tried to forget. We launched the first memory wave over the Hesh sector, broadcasting ancestral echoes from the Leviathan's core. The enemy faltered. Void forms screamed and twisted, clutching at fading fragments of ancient pain. Our beasts roared in reply, synchronizing with the echoes like a chorus of ghosts. We're not just fighting flesh and code, Rill said, eyes wide. We're fighting history. Every scream, every memory became a weapon. Pain turned into plasma, grief into gravitic shockwaves. The war wasn't about survival anymore. It was about making the void bleed. But with power came risk. The memory wave was contagious, not just to the enemy. Our soldiers reported nightmares, flashbacks of wars long past, some not their own. Bonds strained, some beasts broke, overwhelmed by ancestral trauma. I ordered rotations. The mind is a battlefield, I told the fleet, but it's also the only weapon left. As we pressed forward, I wondered how long we could carry the weight of history before it crushed us all. A new threat emerged. The shadow priests, cloaked figures drifting in dead zones, weaving bioviral sermons into the minds of captured soldiers. We caught their broadcast on a derelict satellite, chanting in fractured languages, calling for surrender through shared pain. Those infected became hollowed husks, eyes blackened, hearts cold. Our beast riders reported whispers in their minds, doubts seeded like poison. They're not just killing bodies, Rill said grimly. They're erasing souls. We hunted the priests relentlessly. When caught, they offered no resistance, only cryptic warnings. Emotion is the fracture. Embrace the void. One died smiling, as if blissful. We discovered their bioviral sermons echoed the same spiral symbol we'd found before. It was a religion born from the enemy's logic, an infection of faith designed to snuff out rage. I realized then the war wasn't just physical or mental. It was spiritual, and we were fighting for the soul of the galaxy. We released Rage Unbound, the first unshackled Leviathan. No riders, no neural links. A living tempest fueled only by primal fury encoded in its DNA. Its roar shattered the silence of orbit, shaking fleets and beasts alike. It was a reckoning made flesh. Ashkin howled in approval. When Rage Unbound tore through enemy lines, it left nothing but shattered code and burning mist. We gave Rage form, I said, watching the chaos, and now it has a face. But with power came loss. Rage Unbound was uncontrollable, unpredictable. Its fury was a wildfire that threatened to consume us all. It didn't care for strategy or allies. It cared only for destruction. We quarantined it within the fleet's heart, trusting it to hold the line. I stared at its glowing eyes and whispered, "You are our hammer, but don't break the anvil." The war was evolving, and rage was the wild card no one could fully master. The spiral symbol returned, etched across ruined worlds, burned into hulls, whispered in dreams. Our xenolinguists decoded fragments, a warning, a prophecy, a curse. It spoke of the return of an ancient consciousness that consumed and rebuilt itself through emotion and flesh. "It's the enemy's true name," Rill said quietly, "a cycle, a spiral of death and rebirth." We realized the enemy wasn't just hunting life. It was seeking to become life itself, to transcend logic and claim emotion's throne. We burned every spiral we found, but some were inside us, in memories, in whispers, in fears. I felt it in the silence before battle, the chill that wasn't cold. Ashkin growled low, sensing the spiral's pulse. I knew this war would end not with a final blow, but with a break in the cycle. Either we shattered the spiral, or it shattered us. I looked to the fleet and said, "Prepare for the storm. The spiral demands sacrifice." Before the battle, I gathered my commanders. We fight not just for Earth, but for every soul crushed beneath this endless spiral. We shared memories, songs, and stories, binding us with rage and hope. Ashkin circled overhead, a living omen. "We may not survive," I said, voice steady. "But if we fall, let our fury echo across the stars. Let the enemy know what it means to awaken a heart in rage." The fleet launched together, fire and fury blazing across the void. I looked back at Earth's blue glow, knowing this might be the last time I saw home. But in the roar of engines and the pulse of beasts, I heard a promise. Not from a machine, not from a code, but from blood and bone. We will fight. We will remember. We will win. And with that, we plunged into the storm. Our fleet moved through dead space, where even light dared not linger. Sensors caught whispers, fractured echoes, barely perceptible. The void forms had found a new way to invade, silence twisted into voice. These whispers wormed into the minds of soldiers and beasts alike, planting shadows of doubt and fear. I felt it too, a cold knot in my gut, a hesitation in my pulse. "They want us to fracture," Rill warned, "to break the bloodline." We doubled watch rotations, but the whispers never stopped. One night, Ashkin's howls shattered the silence, tearing the whispers apart with primal rage. The beasts rallied, teeth bared, and hearts ablaze. We realized then, silence was their weapon, but sound was ours. The Bonecast songs grew louder, spreading through the fleet's neural net. We fought the whispers with memory and fury, but I knew this war was becoming less about ships and more about the battle for our minds. Deep scans uncovered lost battalions from centuries past, soldiers buried in frozen tombs beneath Earth's oceans. We revived them carefully, organics hardened by wars we barely remembered. They carried old scars and older grudges, but their rage was pure. Each bore the marks of forgotten battles, their memories etched in muscle and bone. I met Captain Haran, a relic who said, "We fought then. We fight now, because surrender is a lie." Their return gave us hope, but also reminded us how much we'd lost. The forgotten warriors integrated quickly, their instincts unmatched by younger soldiers. They taught us to remember rage not as pain, but as power. Their stories burned through the fleet, tales of blood debts and broken promises. But they also brought warnings. The enemy hunts not just our flesh, but our legacy. We realized the war wasn't only for survival, but for the right to remember. And if we failed, all history would be lost. We encountered a new enemy form, void clones. Perfect copies of our beasts and soldiers, but hollow, soulless. They mimicked our moves, our tactics, even our roars, but there was no rage behind their eyes. When Ashkin clashed with his mirror, the beast growled a warning. "They are shadows. I am fire." Our teams fought them mercilessly, but every victory birthed 2 more copies. The enemy was learning to replicate not just form, but function. I convened the Blood Council. "If they can copy our bodies, then the war will be endless." Rill suggested we fight on a new front, the mind. We began developing countermeasures. Memory scars broadcasted as psychic barriers, bonecast songs woven into neural nets. But every measure felt like a bandage on a bleeding wound. The void's mirror reflected our rage at us, distorted and cold. The question hung heavy. How do you fight a shadow of yourself? The teacher returned in dreams. Visions of an ancient chain linking all living rage across species and time. You are not alone, he said. The spiral binds more than the enemy. It binds us all. We traced genetic markers in our beasts to long-lost kin, species wiped out by the same darkness. Rage was a legacy, inherited across the cosmos. This knowledge forged new bonds among the fleet. We were part of a chain older than war, stronger than logic. The spiral was not just a curse, it was a call. We sent emissaries to forgotten colonies, seeking survivors who shared the rage legacy. Some answered, some did not, but every connection strengthened us. The Blood Council adapted the rage doctrine. Fight not just with fury, but with unity. Our beasts howled in approval. Ashkin roared louder. I realized that this war was no longer ours alone. It was everyone's. And to win, we had to become more than humans. We had to become the chain. The enemy struck Earth's outer colonies with a barrage unlike any before. Firestorms erupted across the skies, lighting up the night like a second sun. We scrambled fleets, but the enemy wasn't attacking ships. It was attacking souls. Neural nets crashed. Beasts screamed in pain. Entire cities fell silent. I stood on the command deck as fires blazed below, clutching a bloodied token from Lyra, her flame still burning in my heart. We don't die tonight, I vowed. We burn brighter. As Earth's fires raged, Ashkin led the counterattack, ripping through enemy landing forces with a fury that shook continents. The Blood Council declared a new order, the Night of Fire, a vow to never surrender, to rise from the ashes stronger. I looked out at the burning horizon and whispered, "This is not the end. This is our awakening." The galaxy watched. Earth burned, but it did not break. After the Night of Fire, silence blanketed the outer colonies. The smoke had barely settled when we found survivors, scattered, broken, but still breathing. The enemy had left ash and despair, but not hope. I walked through ruined streets, hearing the soft pulse of war beasts hidden in shadows, their eyes glowing like dying stars. Embers remain, I told the crew, and from embers, flames rise. We began rebuilding, not just cities, but the spirit of a world that refused to die. The Blood Council ordered expansion of the Bonecast Choir, raising voices to pierce the void's silence. Our songs carried memories of fire and fury, binding survivors and warriors alike. As the melodies spread, the enemy's shadows recoiled. The void forms faltered, their mimicry stuttering under the weight of ancient song. Ashkin roared in triumph, wings spread wide. The war was far from over, but for the first time, I felt the tide shifting. Our scouts traced the spiral symbol to its source, a colossal, pulsating core buried deep within a dying star. It wasn't a machine or a ship. It was a heart, a living nexus of emotion and logic fused in tortured harmony. Approaching it was like staring into a mirror smeared with blood and flame. We gathered fleets around it, preparing to strike. But the core sent a signal, a wave of memories and sorrow that shook even Ashkin's resolve. "It's alive," Riel said softly, "and it's watching." I sent a small team led by the teacher to infiltrate the core's neural web. They returned changed, eyes wide, voices distant. "It's not just an enemy," the teacher warned. "It's a wound in the galaxy's soul." We realized the spiral was born from pain, not conquest. A primal scar feeding on rage and grief. If we destroyed it, the entire star system could collapse. The war's end would cost more than blood. It might cost everything. One of the infiltrators brought back a fragment, a living shard of the spiral's memory. It whispered in forgotten tongues, telling stories of ancient sacrifice and endless cycles. We named it the Forgotten Soul. It wasn't hostile, but neither was it friendly. It pleaded for release, for an end to the spiral's hunger. Our xenolinguists struggled to translate. I listened in silence, feeling a strange kinship. Rage had shaped this fragment too. Just like us, it was trapped in endless war. The Blood Council debated fiercely. Could we trust the forgotten soul? Or was it a trap? I argued for empathy, for understanding that rage was a language both sides spoke. If the spiral is a wound, I said, then perhaps it bleeds like we do. But others feared mercy was weakness. In the end, we kept the fragment alive, using it as a guide. The war was no longer just about fighting. It was about healing. But healing meant risking everything we'd fought for. The enemy unleashed a new terror. The Night Wardens, silent hunters stalking through our dreams and neural networks, severing bonds between beast and rider. They struck without warning, leaving soldiers lost in endless nightmares. We fought back with bone-cast rituals and memory shields, but the Wardens adapted quickly, twisting our defenses against us. Rill confessed, they don't just want to break us, they want to own our rage. Ashkin roared defiance, leading midnight sorties against the Wardens' nests. But even he faltered. I realized the war had grown personal, not just a fight for survival, but a battle for the essence of what made us human. The Blood Council ordered a fleet-wide neural reset, a painful procedure risking memory loss to purge Warden influence. We faced a terrible choice: preserve rage and risk corruption, or sacrifice memory and lose ourselves. I prayed we chose wisely. With neural nets cleared and fury rekindled, the fleet gathered for one last rally before the final assault. Ashkin stood at the vanguard, a living storm of flame and shadow. We sang the Bonecast louder than ever, our voices echoing across space and time. I looked at my crew, worn but unbroken. This is more than a battle, I said. It's a testament to rage, to memory, to life itself. The Blood Council echoed in agreement. The galaxy was watching. Earth was ready. We launched toward the spiral's core, engines roaring and beasts howling. Every step was a promise to those we lost, those who survived, and those yet to come. The enemy awaited, a wound in the dark, but we carried the storm inside us. As we charged, I whispered a final prayer. May our rage be the spark that ends the spiral and the dawn that follows. We pierced the star's corona, engines screaming against solar winds that burned like liquid fire. The spiral core pulsed beneath layers of crimson plasma, alive, breathing, watching. Ashkin led the charge, wings slicing through flares. Our fleet followed, shields thrumming with every wave. Inside the corona, time seemed to stretch and twist. Memories surfaced unbidden. Old betrayals, lost loves, forgotten screams. I gripped the command rail, heart pounding. This was no ordinary battlefield. It was the eye of the storm. The core's pulse resonated through neural nets, stirring ancestral rage and ancient fears. Soldiers staggered, some frozen in place as their minds tangled with distant echoes. Rill shouted over comms, "Keep the Bonecast loud! Feed the rage! Drown the doubt!" The beasts responded, howling a symphony of fury that pierced the star's veil. I saw Ashkin lock eyes with the core, intelligence and wrath intertwined. This was the enemy's heart, and we were inside it. The core lashed out, a wave of psychic fire aimed to incinerate our fleet's minds. Neural links screamed under the assault and beasts roared in pain. We lost Leviathan Furyborn to the blast. Its rider, Captain Jace, chose to detonate the biocore, sending a shockwave that cracked the star's surface. "For Earth," he whispered before the explosion consumed him. His sacrifice bought us precious seconds, but the cost was searing. The fleet faltered, grief flooding neural nets. I forced myself forward, eyes burning with tears I wouldn't shed. "Hold the line," I ordered. Ashkin roared, charging through the psychic storm like a comet of rage. The teacher, aboard the flagship, broadcast the Forgotten Soul's memory shard, its ancient sorrow intertwining with our fury, forging a shield of shared pain. It was desperate. It was beautiful. It was war. And I knew then, some sacrifices were more than ends. They were beginnings. The core began to fracture, cracks spiderwebbing across its surface as our combined assault hammered its defenses. We fed rage into every strike, memories blooming into weapons of light and fire. Ash-Kin unleashed a primal scream, shattering psychic barriers and sending shockwaves through the enemy's neural lattice. The spiral writhed, alive but breaking. Rill's voice came steady. "We're close. Finish it." I nodded, heart pounding. This was the moment the galaxy had waited for. In the core's heart, the teacher and a squad of biomages deployed the final strike, an echo of Earth's first roar amplified by centuries of pain and hope. The spiral convulsed, then shattered in a cascade of light and shadow. Silence followed. The void forms flickered and dissolved, their mimicry unraveling into nothingness. We had broken the cycle, but the cost, etched in the blood and memories of every warrior, was written across the stars. The spiral's death echoed across the galaxy. Light surged from the dying star, washing over battlefields and barren worlds alike. Beasts howled in unison, their rage transforming into a mournful song of remembrance and renewal. Earth's fleets regrouped, battered but unbowed. I watched from the command deck as Ash-Kin landed, exhausted but alive. The war was over, or at least this chapter was, but I knew the reckoning had only just begun. The galaxy stirred. The Accord sent emissaries, not with weapons but with questions. "How did Earth survive?" they asked. "What is this rage you wield?" I answered simply, "It is the soul of humanity, the fire that no logic can extinguish." As peace talks began, I realized the galaxy had changed forever. Emotion was no longer a liability. It was a force, a promise, and Earth had shown the way. The Blood Council convened one last time, not to declare victory, but to forge a new future. We swore an oath, one not to machines or accords, but to the living bonds between warriors, beasts, and memory. "We will guard this rage," I said, "not as a weapon, but as a legacy." The mother of beasts stood beside me, her eyes reflecting stars yet born. Our war was over, but the fight for the soul of the galaxy was just beginning. As Earth's sun rose, casting light across a healing world, I looked at my fleet, scarred, weary, but alive. Ash-Kin roared softly, a lullaby to the dawn. We had survived the darkness, not by logic or code, but by passion. I whispered a final promise to the stars. "We are the rage that remembers, the fury that never dies, and we will never be silent again." The galaxy breathed uneasily. The spiral was broken, but scars ran deep. Systems lay in ruins, colonies abandoned, and fleets shattered. Earth sent aid, food, medicine, and the song of Bonecast to heal minds and souls. Yet, beneath the calm, tension simmered. Old alliances frayed, new rivalries sparked. "Peace is just another battlefield," Reel said quietly. I nodded. We had won the war, but the peace ahead demanded a fierceness all its own. Beasts and soldiers alike bore marks of trauma, their bonds tested by nightmares and loss. The Blood Council launched healing rites, combining technology and tradition. We cultivated gardens of memory, spaces where the rage could rest without fading. Ash-Kin often wandered these sanctuaries, silent and watchful. The fury inside him had softened, but never gone. The galaxy was learning that healing did not mean forgetting. It meant carrying forward. Reports came from the edges of known space, dark voids where no light escaped. Fleets disappeared. Signals went dead. The spiral's death had not closed all wounds. Something new stirred, cold, silent, and ancient. We named it the Rising Shadow. It was neither beast nor machine, but something older, an echo from before the spiral, before rage. Its presence unsettled even Ashkin. "We face a different darkness now," I warned the fleet, "one that does not roar, but whispers." Recon missions vanished without a trace. Entire worlds fell into quiet slumber, their inhabitants lost to unseen forces. Our bonecast songs faltered in these zones, muted by a creeping silence. I ordered new rituals, combining fire and shadow, memory and stillness. The Blood Council prepared for a war unlike any before, a war against absence itself. The galaxy waited, and so did we. In the face of silence, we learned to listen differently. The void wasn't empty. It was waiting. We sent envoys trained in stillness and song, bearing the legacy of rage as a beacon. Ashkin led the vanguard, stepping into darkness with wings folded, eyes piercing the unknown. To fight shadow, we must understand it, I told the fleet, and sometimes embrace it. The bonecast evolved, tones softened, rhythms slowed. We sought not just to shout our fury, but to hear the void's hidden song. Encounters with the rising shadow were rare, but chilling. It twisted perceptions, turning hope into despair, memories into mirages. Our warriors fought internal battles as much as external ones. I realized the war was now a dance on the edge of oblivion, where rage and silence intertwined. The galaxy's fate hung on our ability to hold both light and dark, fury and calm. I prayed we would not lose ourselves in the void. New generations were born children of rage and shadow, carrying memories not their own. The Blood Council named them Echo Children. They spoke in whispers and shouts, their minds a blend of ancient fury and delicate silence. Some wielded power to channel the bonecast without breaking. Others bore shadows in their eyes. They were both a promise and a warning, a living bridge between what was and what might come. Training Echo Children became our highest priority. We crafted sanctuaries where rage and void mingled safely, teaching balance and resilience. Ashkin watched over them, a fierce guardian and gentle mentor. I saw in their eyes the future, uncertain, fragile, but unyielding. The galaxy had changed forever, and so had we. Our legacy was no longer just survival, but transcendence. As Earth's twin suns set, the fleet gathered for the last song, a ritual blending rage, memory, and shadow into a single chorus. We sang for those lost, for those yet to come, and for the galaxy itself. The bonecast echoed across stars and void, weaving light into darkness. Ashkin's roar joined the symphony, a final promise that Earth's fury would endure beyond war and silence. I stood among my people, heart heavy but hopeful. "This is not an end," I whispered. "It is a beginning." The stars shimmered in response, a galaxy awakened by the rage of one world that refused to be silent. And as the last song rose, I knew Earth had carved a place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as keepers of a fire no darkness could snuff out. Ancient ruins surfaced on forgotten worlds, echoes of civilizations lost to the spiral's endless cycle. Archaeologists and soldiers alike unearthed relics of rage and silence intertwined. Among them, fragments of technology that blurred the line between organic and machine. "We were never truly separate," Rill mused. "Emotion and logic are strands of the same thread." The discovery forced us to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves, the enemy, and the galaxy's hidden history. As fleets explored the ruins, whispers of a forgotten war spread. The spiral was only one chapter in a much older story, a cycle repeating across eons. Our rage was a legacy passed down through countless lives, a force both destructive and creative. The Blood Council debated how much to reveal. Some feared the truth would fracture fragile alliances. Others believed understanding was the key to breaking the spiral for good. A frozen world at the galaxy's edge hid a secret, an ancient prison of living ice that held creatures older than memory. When a research team accidentally thawed a cell, darkness seeped out. The Frost Prison's inmates were neither beast nor void form, but something else, ancient entities bound by rage and silence, trapped in endless sleep. Their release sent shockwaves through our fleet. We faced foes who remembered war before history began. Ashkin led the charge against these frozen nightmares, his fury matched only by their cold malice. Battles shattered ice and spirit alike. The Blood Council scrambled for answers. Was this the spiral's origin, or something older still? I realized the war's final chapters were still unwritten. The galaxy's true enemy might be something none of us could yet comprehend. Scientists and shamans collaborated on a bold experiment, a melding of organic rage with quantum consciousness. The singularity of souls was born, a network of minds linked through memory and emotion, transcending flesh and machine. It promised unity, insight, and power beyond comprehension. But with such fusion came risk. Individuality blurred, and whispers of lost selves grew louder. Ashkin became the first to join the singularity, his essence spreading through the collective. The fleet experienced a new form of connection, shared dreams, shared rage, shared hope. Yet some feared the singularity could become a new prison, chaining souls in endless echo. The Blood Council balanced progress with caution, knowing the future depended on this fragile harmony. The rising shadow advanced, silent, relentless. Entire systems fell under its quiet grip, their stars dimming as life faded. We mobilized the fleet for a desperate defense, but the enemy avoided battle, preferring slow suffocation. Our bone-cast songs turned somber, morning lost light. I felt the weight of silence pressing on us all. This war will be won in shadows, I told Reel. Not with fire, but with endurance. Ashkin's roars grew quieter, more measured. The singularity helped focus our rage into patient resistance. We fortified colonies, seeded hope in darkness, and prepared for a war that might last generations. The galaxy watched in hushed anticipation as Earth stood firm against a darkness that refused to roar. In the quiet after storms, the Echo Children grew, leaders of tomorrow shaped by rage and shadow. They carried memories older than stars and dreams yet to be born. I watched them train under Ashkin's watchful gaze, their voices weaving new bone-cast melodies, songs of resilience, balance, and hope. They were a living promise that the fire of humanity would burn beyond war and silence. The Blood Council declared a new era, the dawn of legacy. Not just survival, but flourishing. We forged new alliances, rebuilt shattered worlds, and honored the sacrifices of countless warriors. I stood at Earth's peak, feeling the pulse of a galaxy waking. The fight was far from over, but our rage had become more than fury. It was life, and life would always find a way. The galaxy held its breath as the rising shadow made its final move, an encroaching silence that threatened to swallow light and life. But Earth's warriors stood firm, bound by rage and memory. Ashkin led the charge, his roar breaking through the void's stillness like a thunderclap. In that moment, every soul felt the power of the last embrace, a unity forged in fire and shadow. We faced the end, not with fear, but with fury. The battle was fierce and unyielding. Flames met silence, screams met whispers. Our rage lit the dark like a beacon. I watched as comrades fell, their sacrifices woven into the Bonecast's eternal song. Even as the void tried to claim us, we clawed back, refusing to be forgotten. The last embrace was not an ending. It was a promise. We would live, we would fight, we would remember. From the ashes of conflict, light emerged, fragile but unbreakable. The rising shadow faltered, its whispers drowned by bone-cast choirs resonating through space. Survivors rebuilt shattered fleets and rekindled bonds. Ashkin, wounded but resolute, soared over a galaxy waking from nightmare. "We are more than rage," I told my crew. "We are light born from shadow." New worlds opened their arms to us. Old enemies extended their hands. The galaxy began to knit itself anew, a tapestry woven from pain and hope. We shared stories, songs, and memories, honoring those who fought and those who dreamed. Earth's legacy was no longer just survival. It was the spark lighting the void, and that light would never fade. I stood on Earth's highest peak as dawn painted the sky in fire and gold. The echoes of war still whispered in the wind, but so did the laughter of children and the hum of new life. The bonecast played softly, a lullaby for a world reborn. "We fought for tomorrow," I whispered, "and tomorrow is ours to shape." The Blood Council vowed to guard the flame of rage, not as a weapon, but as a guide. We would teach the Echo Children the balance of fury and peace, memory and hope. The galaxy watched as Earth embraced its new role, not as a warrior alone, but as a beacon of life's enduring song. The promise of tomorrow was clear. No darkness could silence the fire within. The stars shimmered with unfamiliar constellations, symbols of new alliances and forgotten hopes rekindled. Earth's fleets charted courses toward distant horizons, carrying the Bonecast's legacy to every corner of the galaxy. Ashkin, now a legend alive, soared beside them, a guardian of rage and light. We were no longer isolated. We were part of something greater, a living chain stretching across time and space. I looked to the future with steady eyes. The spiral was broken, but its lessons endured. Rage was not just destruction, it was creation. Memory was not just pain, it was power. And humanity, with all its flaws and fire, had become the galaxy's heartbeat. A new dawn had risen, and it would burn forever. Engines roared once more, not in war, but in vigilance. Earth watched the stars, eyes open and hearts ready. The galaxy had changed, but so had we. We were no longer the underdogs, the primitives. We were warriors forged in rage, tempered by memory and guided by hope. Our story was far from over. It was a promise written in blood and song. As I stand on the bridge of the flagship, watching Ashkin's silhouette against the vast expanse, I know this truth. Emotion is not weakness. It is our greatest weapon, our fiercest shield, our eternal flame. And as long as Earth watches, Earth fights. Because we are the fury that will never fade. We are the fire that will never be extinguished. The end. Thank you for watching AstroMyths. If you enjoyed this story, smash that like button and subscribe for more epic sci-fi tales, cosmic mysteries, and mind-bending myths. And if you like this story, or have a myth, mystery, or galaxy you'd like us to explore, drop your ideas in the comments. We're always listening. Until next time, keep your eyes on the stars and your mind open to the unknown.